Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. That's at Africa. Welcome to the Part Talk Show with me, your host, Dominic George. Another Wednesday. It's good to know you're watching from home. Remember, today we're talking about mental health and specifically the bipolar disorder. And I've got two guests, a psychologist, and I've got someone who's living the condition. She's my main guest actually today. She's called ENID, and our psychologist of the day is called MURIUKI. So remember to be part of this conversation by sending in on 22162, starting with the word power, because I want you to be part of this conversation. Send me your questions, your suggestions, and your opinions on this matter so that we can make this conversation lively and enjoyable. Now we've got At Africa right here, and they are going to be like rocking the show before we start these conversations once again. So as you prepare to send in those questions, as you prepare to sit in there, today we are a bit late, sorry for that, but I'm sure we are going to have a great show, and do not go away. I'm going to give it back to the At Africa band to take us through. Let's go.
Nimesikia ukitaja mitaani na kanisani wazima sifa zako, yasemekana wewe ni muweza yote, hakuna jambo lolote likushindalo, na nira zote umetatua.
Welcome back. This is the Part Talk Show with me, George, and we are back after that awesome bit there from At Africa. Now we go straight to the conversation. Remember, as I've mentioned to you, we are talking about mental health, bipolar disorder, and today here with me, my main guest, ENID WANJIRU, is one who is living with bipolar disorder, and also clinical psychologist MURIUKI, helping us to understand the condition better. So sending in your questions again to 22162, starting with the word power. I would love to hear from you. So karibuni sana. Welcome to the show. All right. Now, what is bipolar disorder, Mr. MURIUKI? What is it?
Thank you for inviting me to the show today. Honored to be here.
Awesome.
So, how do we define bipolar disorder? One, it's a psychiatric. It's a psychiatric condition that is expressed through extremes in mood. So when I talk about extremes in mood, I mean there's the highs, very high highs, and then there's very low lows. So the very high highs is what we refer to as a manic episode, and the very low lows is what we call a depressive episode. So for you before you get a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, the psychiatrist or the clinician has to in collecting history, has to listen for the manic period, and then they also have to listen for the depressive period. Maybe maybe if I can interfere just a bit there, what is to a lay person, what is manic and what is depressive? Because you said you have to listen to the both. Yes.
Yeah. What does
so when I talk about a manic phase, it's a prolonged period of expansive mood. But by expansive mood, I mean it's a mood that is observed by almost everyone, and you also notice that how I'm feeling is very different from how I normally feel.
It's like being on a permanent sugar high.
being on a permanent sugar high.
Permanent sugar high.
Probably some of us is coffee high. Is it the same effect, right?
Exactly, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So this person will have a lot of energy, will feel on top of the world, will have what you call an inflated sense of self-esteem. They'll have something we refer to as increased goal-directed activity. They'll want to take on very many tasks at once.
And sometimes without thinking them through.
Yes, and they feel like they have a lot of energy to complete these tasks. And previously, this person could not do these things the same way that they are doing them now. So when we observe that, we also listen for something that something that we refer to as a grandiose sense of self, like an inflated sense of value or self-worth.
Overconfidence.
Yes, overconfidence. They are very assertive. They'll confront situations that they previously not even be confident enough to confront. They'll take on tasks that involve them to be in front of people, and maybe previously they were very shy. So we listen for that. So it's a whole list of symptoms that we have to listen for to hear that.
Okay.
So when we're listening for the depressive period, we are listening to a distinct period of time that the person will complain of, I am moody, I am irritable, I don't have energy, my appetite has either shot up or it's sunk, or maybe I want to stay in bed throughout. Everything that I do feels like I need to have a lot of energy to do it. If you're working, for example, you'll wake up in the morning and feel I don't want to go to work.
Losing interest in things that you previously loved, or things that you've really enjoyed.
So it's something we refer to it as a cycle. So you cycle between the very high highs, and then suddenly you slump. So for example, I'd be chatting with you today, and you're very excited. You're making big plans. You have a lot of energy. You're making very huge commitments. You're spending a lot of money on things, and then tomorrow morning we meet, or in 2 days, and you don't want me to say hi to you. You're very moody. You're very irritable. You're not returning calls. You're avoiding contact, and I'm wondering, what did I do?
It's easy to misunderstand someone like that.
Yes, very easy. And especially, and maybe we will talk about this later, how it impacts in life, the different aspects of life that are affected. For example, if you're in a relationship and your partner cannot understand what just happened. We had a very nice date last night, and we were on top of the world, and now you think I'm the worst person.
Yeah, I'm not taking your calls.
So it becomes a bit difficult to even have a regular or what you call a normal relationship with someone who's going through this, and worse so if they do not have insight, what you call insight. They're not aware that this is how they're behaving. So they'll say things like, no, you're crazy, I'm okay, I just don't want to be bothered. So if what you call poor insight, so if they're not aware that this is how they're feeling and behaving, then becomes a lot more difficult to explain to them, hey, this is what we agreed, this is what you promised. Like, no, I did not do that, I don't want to talk to you. So now in treatment, those are some of the things we look at, whether or not they also have insight.
Awesome. When I listen to the psychologist now, I'm grasping how it has been for you. I mean, it must have been intense.
It was. At first, I didn't really know what it was. I was diagnosed in 2014.
4 years back.
4 years, 4 years back. But they misdiagnosed me with depression, because many times they don't really, if they don't have your full medical history, it's very easy to misdiagnose you with depression or anxiety or just having a bad mood. So when I was diagnosed, I had my first depressive episode in 2014, and I was very down for months, and around 6 months I was in a permanently clinical depressive mood, and of course I was put on medication. But then later in the year, the medication now was working too well. So what happened is I went into my first manic episode. So as he described it, it's just a period of permanent elation. You're on top of the world. I was very happy. In fact, there's this guy I met. I thought I'd fallen in love. So I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't read. So I'm like, oh my God,
this is the man, this is the guy.
This is the man, this is real love. Of course, later on, I came to understand it was just a crush, but because I was in a manic phase, it was magnified to this huge thing. So after that, I actually had to be sedated when I was taken to hospital. I had to be tricked to go into hospital because I didn't know what was going on. I was feeling fine, I was on top of the world. So after I was taken to hospital, that's when now they told me, okay, you have bipolar disorder. You're going through what we call a manic episode. And I had to be sedated for like 3 days because it's a high that cannot go down on its own.
Like boing, boing,
exactly.
boing. That's
You're just up all the time. So that's what makes it different from just being hyperactive. Because when you're hyperactive at some point, you'll just go back to normal. But when you're in a manic phase or in a manic episode, it's very prolonged and you need medication or medical assistance to go back to normal.
Absolutely.
So that's what made me realize exactly that I have bipolar disorder.
And when you had the bipolar disorder, how has it impacted your life so far? How has it been for you in terms of, at that time, were you in school?
No, I wasn't. I was actually working.
You're already working?
Yes.
So how did that influence your work environment, your relationship with your employer?
Oh, okay. That's a loaded one. It was very exciting. I was on top of the world. I was very aggressive at work. And the kind of work that I do involves inspections and certifying things. So I was very tough on people. So so much that they used to call me Mishuki's daughter. So if you see her, you just, you run away because she will call you out on 1,000,001 mistakes that you have done. And also I was able to face up to my superiors who previously I couldn't even talk to them before. So I would tell them, no, you were rude to me. You did not say hi to me. And it was really weird. Of course, guys are wondering, okay, what's going on? And of course, my employer thought I was being insubordinate because they didn't understand what was going on. And I also didn't know what was going on. So yeah, it impacted my life in that sense. At that point, it made me very confident. So I actually even started a blog and started journaling my experience, like what a day-to-day basis is like living with bipolar disorder, from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. I would talk about my relationships with my friends, with my colleagues, without holding back any punches. But then when I was depressed, I couldn't even go to work. Like for a whole week, I'll just stay in the house, watching movies or just sleeping and crying and contemplating suicide and things like that. So there's also that aspect of bipolar disorder where you're very depressed and you can't move. I couldn't talk to anyone. My phone was off the whole time. I didn't want to see any light. I just wanted to be dark and dark and dark. So that's how it's impacted my life. It made me lose a couple of friends because they don't understand that you just don't have the energy to go to whatever, Koroga, or like you would want to, but you just don't have the energy and you're not interested in such things anymore. You're just at a low moment in your life. But also then when I was manic, I'm the life of the party. Oh my gosh, we're clubbing every single day. That's the first time I tried shisha. And everyone was like, oh my God, ENID is on drugs, what's going on? But it was just shisha. But something I would never do.
It's not drug.
Yeah, that's the first time I got drunk. I think I had like 5 shots of tequila and like 2 jugs of beer and things like that.
Tequila.
Very bad.
Tequila is a drink, right?
Yes, it is. It's an alcoholic drink. So
it's an alcoholic drink.
Yeah. It was a bad combination.
You knew that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how it's impacted my life. It made me brave. At some point, I'm manic, I'm very brave. But when I'm depressed, I'm very shy. But it also made me aware of, now after I was diagnosed, it made me aware that ENID, this isn't normal behavior, this isn't you. So I had to learn how to manage my triggers, because manic episodes or depressive episodes are triggered by something. It just doesn't happen just like that. So for me, my first manic episode was having a serious crush on a guy. So now I know that's a trigger. So when I like a guy, I tend to pull back because I know that's a trigger for me. So I take it very easy.
Are we like a trigger now?
No, you guys are fine. No, not like that or anything. Yeah, but I know my triggers, so I know how to manage them.
Okay.
So also when I'm depressed, I know my triggers. For example, having a very bad confrontation with someone I love or with someone I work with can trigger that. So I know how to manage this. I have an application on my phone. It's called Inflow. So what it does is every couple of hours, it reminds me, ENID, how are you? How are you feeling?
So and
How's
you've got
your how's your energy level? Are you irritable? Are you happy?
and you've got to answer all these questions.
Yes. Who are you with? What are you doing? Then
Yeah.
based on what I'm feeling, it gives me like an exercise, like take a deep breath, go outside, smile, drink water. So that helps me manage my triggers and it helps me manage my life better.
Perfect.
So
That's-
there have been good things, but also
there is the dark side, just like the condition itself.
yes.
Now, there's something that she mentioned that you can easily be diagnosed with depression, right? You can easily be diagnosed with depression because of the similarity of symptoms, right? What would you be able to give a picture of how many patients do you think, like in Kenya, could be like statistical, if you are able, that could be suffering from bipolar disorder, but they actually thinking they have depression or just acute stress?
So it's a very difficult question to answer, because when you look at the global statistics of bipolar, research shows that it's about 4% to 24% of the general population.
4 to 24%.
4 to 24%.
4 to 24%. Wow.
So that's a huge number.
That's
Yeah.
2 in 10 people.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's now so we have to deal with that magnitude of figures, and then at the second level, how many of these people, especially in our context, seek help for that? Our experience is that we tend to go more to see the doctor when there's a physical ailment. I have a headache, I have a pain in my chest, or my foot is broken, or I was in an accident. Maybe I have lower back pain. So if it's physical pain, we'll quickly rush to the doctor.
See a doc, yeah.
But then when it affects our mental health, we tend to shy away because of the stigma that is associated with it. And it's so pervasive that it affects even people who are well exposed, who understand that mental health is good health, that they'll not seek help, that they will try to resolve it on their own.
Just if I may interject there, our culture.
Yeah.
How does it make it even more difficult then? Like, because if you have bipolar disorder, there are chances of people saying wewe ni mwenda wazimu.
Yes, yes.
Isn't it?
And those are the statements that are more often thrown out at you, and that also continues to even work its dynamic into how in the process of treatment. Because one, you will not want to acknowledge to yourself or share this story with someone else, because then you risk being judged as crazy.
Yeah.
So for example, if ENID is telling me what she's going through, I say, hey, you're
She's crazy. She's mental. She needs to be locked up. There's actually someone who told me, ENID, you're crazy. You need to be locked up. And I will not associate myself with you anymore because I can't have a crazy friend.
What about getting preyed on? Is there someone who suggested go
Yes,
see a
in
pastor?
fact, there's a time I was at a rehab center, not because I'm an alcoholic or I mean drugs or anything, but sometimes after periods of being sick for a very long time, you just need to recover in a conducive environment so you can go to a rehab center. So there's a lady who was convinced that she could cure me, that she could pray for me and I'd be cured of bipolar depression. But what she didn't understand is it's a chronic illness. It's like having cancer. So it doesn't just go away on its own. Yes, it can go away. I believe in God.
Sure.
He can work amazing cures and miracles, but it's not something you can pray over and wish over.
And it goes away.
And it goes away.
I asked that question because last week I had two guests, two ladies living with HIV and AIDS, and one of the things they were mentioning is they had been asked to go to a pastor. A pastor had convinced them, I can pray for you. My church, if you come to my church, register to me in my church, I'll pray for you and your HIV and AIDS will go away. So I would imagine that sometimes there are people who are actually suffering from a mental illness here in Kenya.
Yes.
And they are there, the pastor prays for them, and maybe that itself triggers an episode, and they are there on the ground falling, and there we are, Shetani anatoka.
Yes.
Yeah, isn't it?
Even watching on TV, and this is not in painting pastors in bad light, but from where I sit, my interpretations, that sometimes even when watching the issues that they say they'll pray for, and I am a Christian. I am born again. I believe in God and I'm a follower of Christ. So I understand the issues of faith. However, now when it comes to training, there's a spiritual aspect of mental health, and then there's now the organic aspect, the brain, this disorder having an impact in your brain. So if for example, I get a client who comes to me and says, oh, I've been having these issues and I'm thinking of going to a pastor. So the fact that they've made even the first step to come to a secular sort of treatment and not a pastor is also a dynamic that we question. So I'm not a pastor. I mean, this is not a church. This is a clinic that you've come for an assessment and evaluation. So even acknowledging that it's taken a lot of energy and strength and a lot of how would I put it? To even encourage yourself against all the statements that are being thrown. So it's something that we like. And we also look at the aspect of
sorry if I may cut you a little bit. Just hold your mic a little bit up.
This way.
On the center, at the center, yeah, right there.
Oh. So we look at the spiritual aspects of mental health, because then sometimes what they've been taught in church contradicts or maybe impairs their ability to even seek help, because some actually feel as though they are saying that God is not able to heal me.
Yeah.
So even trying to separate those issues, that there is a place for church and there's a place for faith and how faith works, and also there is a place where you need to be honest with yourself that I've tried this, it's not worked.
Yeah.
Can I allow myself to explore other options? So it works both ways. There are those who go to hospital and their faith brings them, avails them the healing that they need, and it works. But there are those who maybe are hung up on faith, it's not working, but they stay there because they feel as though they would be going against the advice of
so the faith, instead of freeing them up, it brings a sort of guilt, right? Yeah, okay.
So it's what we have to it's part of the diagnosis. It's looking at how it's
and it's part of what can cause stigma to the people. All right.
Yes.
Before we will take a short break right now. We come back. Maybe I'll ask if there is a question from the audience, and then if there's some few things that you'd like to mention about. So we shall go for a short break right now. And remember, as I mentioned to you at the beginning of the show, if you have a question to a clinical psychologist or to a guest today, ENID, if you have a question or a suggestion or opinion, or you want to tell something to her, please text in on 22162 starting with the word power, so that we can read your text on the second segment of the show. So we're going to take a short break right now. Don't go away. We'll continue on the conversation on bipolar, and please do text in and let's talk. All right. So give it back to At Africa. Let's go.
I give it to you. My life I give it to you. Hey, my life I give it to you. My life I give it to you. Kama soja napiga saluti, shika mic kuachilia kama bunduki. One more time. Last time go. Go chini ya what? Chini ya mwamba. Chini ya what? Chini ya mwamba. Chini ya what? Chini ya mwamba. Mimi ni pale chini ya mwamba. 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 Chini ya what? Mwamba. Chini ya what sisi wote? Mwamba. Chini ya what we? Mwamba. Tuko chini ya what? Mwamba. Chini ya what? Mwamba. Chini ya what?
Give it up to At Africa, At Africa. Awesome. Welcome back to the show with me, Dominic George. As I've mentioned to you, we are talking about mental health. We're talking about bipolar disorder today, together with my guest today, ENID, WANJIRU, and MURIUKI. They are helping us to understand this topic much more. One giving the technical part and the other giving the experience, which really merges into one healthy whole. So remember to text me in on 22162, starting the word power, and you can ask a question or a suggestion or give your opinion as we continue with this conversation. So coming back, before we take the questions from the audience, I would like to ask maybe if you could help us to understand what is the best way to cope with someone who is having bipolar. How can they cope with this condition?
It's a good question. Now, when we meet, when we are assessing a client or a patient for bipolar, and after they get that diagnosis, treatment is not only focused on this specific person, because this person does not live in isolation, and they don't. The triggers are in their environment, so we try to approach it from a family perspective, so that the family one is aware of what is going on with their one of their own,
Family, yeah.
and how it's affecting them first, and also how they feel about it, and then the family now can begin to understand how every interaction that they have with this person can have an impact in their management, or in its getting better or getting worse. So that now, for example, if there are some unresolved issues that I have with, let's say, my son or my brother or my mom or my dad, when I get that diagnosis, then my family needs to know that how we used to resolve issues previously, and I would blow up either because it's a dynamic of it's a symptom of the bipolar. Then they need to know that I may still blow up when they confront me on a certain issue. So maybe them coming head to head with me, as they've always done, may not be very productive. So any intervention that we make, first including the medication that we recommend a review with the psychiatrist for prescription, and then also now treatment approach will also involve the whole family, so that now when the family fully understands what is going on with their kin, then they are able to help.
To support more and more.
So the triggers, I mean, how to cope with it, we do not bring things from outside of the environment. We work with the environment that the patient is in. So, for example, if she's working, what would be the dynamics at work where she spends most of her day there? So if she's a student, what's the dynamic at school and class and lecturers and all that? So that if she's, depending on the age, also if it's a man, if it's a woman, if they are in their bit older. So we look at what's in the environment and what resources are available in the environment to support.
Okay.
So the first, one of the resources that we consider is their own capacities. How
before you go into details, probably she can mention a little bit on how you, in the same question, how you've been coping, and then from there, how from there he can help now add from a technical point of view. All right.
Okay, so for me, what works is medication, therapy, and living a healthy lifestyle. So medication, I have to be on medication the whole time. So medication normally addresses the manic phase. So I have medication that allows me to be stable. They're just called, what are they called? Mood stabilizers, just to stabilize my moods. Because when you're bipolar, you're kind of like cycling up and down. So what the medication does, it keeps you balanced. Then I also have antipsychotics, because sometimes what happens is when you have bipolar disorder, you can have hallucinations, you can be schizoaffective. Schizoaffective means something like hearing voices, having these grandiose ideas. At some point, I could actually talk to my guardian angel, and I could actually hear him like talking to me, which is abnormal. It's not normal. So I'm also on a couple of antipsychotics, and then of course antidepressants, so that your mood doesn't dive so down that you are too fatigued, you can't do anything.
Absolutely.
Then therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. So therapy is, I go to a counseling psychologist or a counselor, and you just talk about whatever that comes to your mind. So you talk about managing your triggers, you talk about what makes you feel sad, what makes you feel active. Then they give you insights on how you can manage it and how you can cope with it. Then living a healthy lifestyle, I have had to quit alcohol completely. I don't drink, even
No
though
tequila?
no, no tequila, no occasional alcohol or drink of wine, nothing. I had to quit chocolate, coffee, tea. I just prefer like soya or cocoa or a malt drink, something like that. Something that's healthy.
The drinks with less caffeine, or
Yes,
at least none.
the drinks with less caffeine. Also, something that's very important is exercise. So I make sure I exercise at least 30 minutes every day, because then that balances your mood. So that if you're too hyperactive, then you get to release that excess energy.
True.
Then also, if you're very low, then you release endorphins, good feeling hormones when you exercise. So that's what.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's what works for me.
Awesome. Before now, we get like to ask, I'll give the. Okay, but the audience is getting ready for the question. Is there something that she has left out that you would like to add on?
She's covered most of it. The only thing maybe that I would like to encourage anyone who may be listening to us may begin to note down those symptoms and how they've been feeling is that find out who's the closest psychiatrist that you can see for an evaluation, so that you're not, the reason I'm saying this is that you're not self-diagnosing yourself to have bipolar and then beginning to act as you have bipolar.
You know what happens when you're in Google? What you read there is what you feel here, and then eventually it just materializes.
Start acting it out.
Yeah, you start acting it out.
Yeah, so as we're beginning to talk and talk about these symptoms, it may feel as though it's you that we're describing. So it's my recommendation that you visit a psychiatrist who will sit down with you and collect history and ask some questions, and then with the honest feedback, then you're able to find out, do some tests, and then you're able to know, do you have bipolar or do these symptoms? Because
are they pointing out something else? So that you don't get misdiagnosed. Okay, I think we're going to ask a question now to the audience, and just say you say your name and what you're doing currently, and then you ask a question briefly.
Thank you. I am Anne, a student, University of Nairobi. My question is, what is the time frame for evaluation of bipolar disorder? And are there the extremities and on the other side?
The manic and the depressive, okay. Yeah. So you understood the question, and then we can take the second question.
Hi. Zipporah from the University of Nairobi. I want to ask, at some point you just feel low, you don't want to talk to people, as she has said. Could it be normal? And if it is normal, how are you able to differentiate her condition from the one you just feel normally? Thank you.
Okay, all right, so perfect. Let's take those two questions first.
So thank you for those questions. Maybe I can start with the last one. So how do you know whether you have bipolar or not? So you cannot know on your own. You need to be assessed by a psychiatrist, okay? So how then do you know that you need to go get that assessment? We on a daily basis go through those moods. We are tired, we are bored, we don't have energy, we don't feel like going to work. So that's normal. So for when it begins to deviate from that, what we are calling normal, so that now it becomes a daily experience, that you're feeling like this on more days than not, and it's beginning to affect even your work. People are beginning to complain, they're beginning to ask you, are you okay? You're also beginning to see that it's affecting your sleep, your eating, that you're beginning to feel that you're a bit different from how you used to be. Then it's very important for you to quickly go get this assessment. Now, the other question that was asked is, what's the time frame? Maybe I did not get it right. So if your question on time frame refers to how long do you need to take before you can go see a psychiatrist, so with mental health, sadly, the deterioration of a condition from mild symptoms to moderate to severe to profound can be very fast. So as opposed to just waiting and saying, let me wait it out, let me see if it's going to resolve itself. So mental disorders do not resolve themselves. They're not like a headache where you can sleep it off. So it helps if you're having suspicions, if someone around you at home or your family, people who know you, are beginning to ask some very uncomfortable questions, then it's important for you to quickly go and get that assessment. The last question you asked how extreme. What are the extremities? So when it's very low on the depressive state, the lowest is now you start thinking of suicide, contemplating suicide. So you'll start feeling as though the only way out of this low depressive mood is to kill yourself. And sadly, we've had people who attempt and they are successful. Luckily for those who attempt and are not successful, then we are able to intervene, because then we know that the family becomes aware that this is actually serious. So the global statistics say that about up to almost 20% of people who have a diagnosis of bipolar end up attempting suicide, and some are even successful. So those numbers are scary. So it's not a condition that we need to tiptoe around.
Yep.
It's a condition that needs intervention. The fastest or the earliest that you suspect that either you or someone you love or a friend or a colleague could be going through this.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Give it a clap for that. Thank you. Now, there's some questions from home and from our viewers, and maybe also you could answer them briefly because of the time that's running out. So Grace asks, can someone who had an accident then after a while changes suddenly, saying things which are not comprehensible, you know? So I have to read that question again, trying to, can someone who has had an accident then after a while changes suddenly, saying things are not comprehensible? What could be a result of that? What could cause that?
Okay, so when we hear of accidents, our primary concern is, was there any impact to the brain? Now, there are conditions that arise out of something called traumatic brain injury, where there is a physical trauma to the brain. And depending on which part of the body that is, I mean, the head that is hit, depending on if it's the sight, the part that is involved with sight, the hearing, the thinking, so it will have alterations in your behavior, the way you think. So no, it may not be bipolar, but it could trigger what you call an early onset, beginning early of certain symptoms. So I cannot say yes to make a diagnosis on here, because it should need to be assessed. But yes, after an accident, there's also something that we call post-traumatic stress disorder, which could be acute, meaning happening immediately, the symptoms manifesting immediately, or it could be delayed. But in all my answers, I would recommend that she gets assessed so that she can find out what's going on, because from what she's saying, she's aware that this is not, she's either her or whoever she's inquiring on behalf of has changed in the way that they used to behave.
So that maybe an fMRI would be a good thing to have right
yes,
there.
I'm glad you know what an fMRI is. It's a very nice equipment. Oh, awesome.
All right. I'm Sean, and what's wrong when I feel pain on my forehead every time I feel shy?
That could be like a stress reaction. For example, when I'm at work and I'm faced with a difficult colleague, I get a really sharp pain on my shoulder. So sometimes what happens is, if your brain cannot process exactly what's going on at that time, then it sends your body a signal like something is going on. This is not a right situation. You're stressed. So that could be stress.
It could be a bit of
let's
stress,
see what Arthur says.
So it could be that, it could be true, and also it could be a symptom for anxiety. So that when you're very aware of the kind of sensation that you have here, how else is the rest of the body behaving? Are you sweating? Are you jittery? Do you have butterflies in the stomach? Are you avoiding these kinds of scenarios? So we look at the global perspective of that symptom, not just
a single
the report.
So you need to see the whole thing. All right. I think we have already mentioned about this. Someone is asking what are the signs and symptoms of one to realize that he or she has bipolar. I think we have already mentioned about that. I am Ellie, living with this condition. After taking drugs for more than 10 years, it keeps coming back. I'm okay now, but stopping this drug is a big problem. What do I do? So I am thinking here what you're saying is a bit stuck with the drugs, even though you're saying it's a bit okay. So, yeah.
What I would say to him, don't stop taking your medication. True, mental illnesses affect one person to another differently. For example, there could be someone who, after taking the medication for a number of years, the body restores its normal functions and you're okay. I mean, so long as you maintain a healthy lifestyle, you're eating the right types of foods, you're exercising, you're talking to someone about what you're feeling. So you might not have to take medication, but that depends on your psychiatrist. So never stop taking medication. Your psychiatrist is the person who should tell you, okay, now you're fine, stop taking medication. But as you progress and as you feel better, what happens is your dosage is reduced. So yes, you will have to be on medication for the rest of your life, because there's something wrong with the neurotransmitters in your brain. It's not something you can wish away. It's something that's chronic. It's like cancer. You can't tell a cancer patient, okay, I've taken medication for 10 years, I want to quit because I feel better. No, it's something that you have to discuss with your service provider, your medical service provider, and once the psychiatrist gives you the go-ahead, you don't need medication, then that's fine. If they don't, take medication for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's good.
Maybe to add, yes, you do not go off any psychiatric medication without the recommendation of your doctor. And two, I'd be curious to know if that person is in therapy, and also the changes that they have occurred in their lives over the period of time that they're on medication, and also whether they use any substances or alcohol. Because now, if I'm on medication and I'm taking alcohol, it's metabolized the same way. The medication is metabolized the same way alcohol is in the liver the same way. So alcohol tends to be metabolized fast, so that now the medication will do its whole round in the body and get excreted without having been broken down to be useful. So to look at all these issues that are around these, them stopping, and also to encourage them to know that it will take a while longer.
It will take a while longer. Okay. Now, if someone wanted to come see you as we close up the show, where is there a possibility to come and see you as a person in your office? Do you have a practice where people can reach out to you?
Yes, I'm in private practice. We're on Peponi Road, number 32 Peponi Road. We encourage as many people as possible to even do an assessment. Now, the purpose for that assessment is not to give you a diagnosis, is to find out how aware are you about yourself, and how aware are you when these slight changes begin to change, so that even if the symptoms that maybe you show or you present with are not sufficient to get a diagnosis, then we can talk about how then do you adjust certain aspects of your life to stop these symptoms from going to a full-blown diagnosis. So yes.
Do you have a sort of a website or social media presence if someone wants to start from there?
On social media, we are not yet there because we want we have an online scheduling app that maybe I can share with you later for this disclosure. But for now, we are happy. We have a number that maybe we could share later that you can call to book an appointment if you're not able to use the online platform. But yes, we are available if you need us.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Atha. Your final remarks, you want to say something? Yeah.
Well, if any person is watching and feels the need to reach out to someone, if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling sad, if you feel suicidal, there are very many online platforms that you can reach out to. On Facebook, you can always look me up. I'm ENID Ongaya. You can talk to me as many times as you want. You can just let me know what's going on. But also there are many like Facebook groups, like for anxiety, for depression, for bipolar. So you're able to relate to people who are going through the same thing. Then there's something called Users of Psychiatry in Kenya. There's a Facebook page, they have a Twitter page, they also have a website. So these are people who are in therapy or people who have mental illnesses, and they come together collectively to seek help. So you can get to their website, they'll give you addresses to counselors, to psychiatrists, and you can get the help you need. And also you can interact with them on Facebook or Twitter. And they also have a landline, like a hotline. In case you feel suicidal, you can call, and then you can reach out to someone to make sure that you're okay.
Awesome.
But parting shot, this is a condition you can live with for the rest of your life. It's not a death sentence.
It's not a death sentence.
And the stigma gets less and less with time as people are able to understand exactly what it is.
And also you become more hard-skinned. You're able to deal with all that.
Yes.
All right, so thank you so much. I want to thank my guest today, Miss ENID. I keep confusing that Edna with Edna, so my mouth won't say Edna.
It's okay.
So, ENID WANJIRU and clinical psychologist Atha MURIUKI, you have been part of this show, part of this conversation, making us enjoy and being able to understand this conversation even better, this topic even better. And I hope at least from what the some of you who have contacted me that you have learned something from today's show on bipolar disorder. And remember, you can always reach out. You can go to my Facebook page. I am Dominic George. If you want to reach out to ENID, or you want to reach out to Dr. Arthur, and I can be able to connect you with them. Thank you for being part of the show. Please clap for my guests.
Thank you.
And clap for At Africa Kenya. And clap for the audience. Thank you so much for watching the show. This has been a great show. Thank you for being part of it. I will see you next Wednesday. We'll be talking about atheism. Have invited the president of atheism in Kenya, Bwana Harrison. He'll be talking to us. So we can already start this conversation. Will be quite also interesting on understanding that part better. So I will see you next Wednesday. Have a great week and have a good night. Be mad. Be exceptional. Make a difference. At Africa, let's go.
Talking of the most important person who can heal bipolar, by the way. Mtu wa maana, mtu wa maana. Ni Yesu, ni Yesu, ndiye mtu wa maana. Mtu wa maana, mtu wa maana. Ni Yesu, ni Yesu, ndiye mtu wa maana. We're going to do some therapy. Yeah, it's called some music therapy. Yeah? So even if you're at home, if you're watching us from home, you can try this. Just follow this. Play me some canon and a metronome. You just close your eyes like this. 1, 2, 3. Just close your eyes. Just like that. Are you closing your eyes? I'm seeing audience. Then you do like this. So squeeze your hand and then release. And squeeze your hand and then release. Then breathe in and then out. Breathe in and out. And nod your head. And nod your head. And nod your head. Then nod your head. Then repeat after me. La la la. La la la. Say la 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. And la 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 la. La 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 la. And that was the Power Talk Show. Just a bit of music therapy. Thank you. That was the Power